Hello everybody and welcome back. This weekend I'm going to do a cross-country flight, which is going to be my private pilot solo cross-country of more than 150 miles with 3 stops at, well, 3 full stops at 3 different airports and a minimum of 50 miles between at least 2 airports. So we are going to go into how I'm actually going to plan for this. So the place I'm taking off out of is the Air Force Academy, so we're going to start there. That is my first point. Now we're going to go for the very high level view. Then the next airport I'm going to is Rocky Mountain Metro up in Denver. And then, just because I didn't want to have a nice and easy cross-country, we're going to go even further up north. And we are quite literally going to circle around the class Bravo. So I need to find some waypoints out here, just to keep me clear of the class Bravo. Now, 7,000, probably a little close, but if I can slide around there, that is probably a good idea. So at the end of the day, we do have to come back. We put in the Air Force Academy. Now, flying directly through the class Bravo, that's a problem. We could do the boring route and go over here, but there are terrain and mountains over here. Let's pull up the VFR. US VFR. That looks nice and complicated. So, if we go over here, this is all city, whole lot of city. Then there's 11.8, 12.8, there's just mountains all the way up over here. So we can kind of fly direct, but kinda. We're gonna come up here to Rocky Mountain Metro. Then we are gonna go up here to Greeley. Then we've got to find a place somewhere out here so that we can full circle the class Bravo. And I want to stay outside of that 7,000 shelf. This shelf is 8,000. I'm going to be 7.5 over here, so 8,000 I'm comfortable with, because that will be our minimum safe altitude. But real quick, I also want to do something a little different. We're going to put in Hugo. Hugo will work. We're going to come off of Hugo, but we're only going to add that as essentially a waypoint. Then we're going to go right about here, where there's almost no chance of us entering in. And then instead of going to Hugo, that's our second GPS point. We're gonna go BRK. And we're basically gonna make this little diamond shaped thingy. So, the plan is to go very roughly up here, go up here to Greeley, remain clear of the class Bravo. There is a GPS, and I also have my iPad. The iPad kind of cuts out occasionally, but the GPS in the airplane shouldn't. So we are going to use that. So, but we're going to back that up with the Hugo VOR. So we're just going to take this radial, and we're going to use that. So basically we plug in the Hugo VOR, or we can go from here and intercept the Gill VOR. That will make it so that we just fly our radial outbound. Let's actually move this probably over there. That way we just know that we're clear. So we basically fly the Greeley VOR straight out on a radial that keeps us clear of all the class Bravo. And then over here we basically look for what is this? Thurman VOR. When we are 270 from the VOR, we're going to swap over to the Black Forest VOR. That'll keep us clear, let us do a little sightseeing, so we can go straight over the city, we can go north of the city, we can go out east, and then we can come all the way back. So that's a super high level. Now, there's a couple other things to check. So, the first one is going to be airspace. The first problem is over here. It's at 9,800, but that's at the highest point. So if we squeeze between the points, we can go at about 9,000, 9.5. But before we get over here to the class Bravo, there's that 10,200 foot, 10,000 and 12,000 Denver airspace. So we're gonna have to drop at least down here below 10,000. But then these guys control all the way down to 9,000 in that section. But we should hopefully... There we go, there's some more resolution. Because this does actually have a terminal area chart. And when we flew into Centennial, they basically wanted us to follow I-25 on the right-hand side up. This time, I don't think we're going to, but we are going to have to drop down to about 7.5. The airport is a little under 6,000, so 7.5 is good because this is an 8,000 foot shelf. 8,000 descent, because we're going to have to cross into this airspace, which is 8,000. So 7.5 is the highest we can go over here. We're going to have to make sure we stay clear of this tip, because at 7,000 that could also cause problems. And that's, well, there's going to be a lot of traffic coming through there. Because I think that's a chunk for this landing runway and departing. So we're just going to make sure that we stay clear, just kind of hug the mountains, head directly to the to the BJC VOR, and land at Rocky Mountain Metro, which is in Broomfield, Colorado. So we do have to do a full stop there, and then taxi back, and then we're going to take off. We're going to head straight for the Greeley VOR at probably, ooh, that's a hard one, because there's 7,000, so we might need to do north for a minute, and then come over. So we probably want to plan that. So let's intercept the Greeley VOR, probably a little further out, probably on a 200 radial or so, somewhere out here. Let's put more than 200, that's like 230, 240. But we essentially want to intercept this radial after flying north. That'll keep us out of their 8,000 and then subsequently 7,000. So that'll keep us out of the class Bravo. That's going to be a little more complicated. Going to have to definitely keep my waypoints there. Then we're going to land up here. No altitude restriction there, but pattern altitude is at... Come on. Give me details. Wow. Pattern altitude's at 4,697. So essentially we're going to want to descend to 5.7. Then when we leave, we're basically going to head east, intercept this VOR, head out on our radial until we should use a second VOR, and when we're directly, basically right next to Denver, or right next to this VOR, then we tune the Black Forest VOR and head back. So, we are probably going to do the whole thing. We'll plan 9,000, but about 2 hours, 13 minutes. It's going to use 15 gallons of fuel. No matter what airplane I take, they have at least 38, so we're good on that. I don't think I have the one... I might have the one that I like, and I might get to fly with the 48-gallon tanks. That would be cool. But it is 223 miles. Now we get into the, I guess, even more dangerous part of this. If I lose an engine at any point, where am I going? Now, the glide ring on the Cessna is tiny. It's a 1 to 9, which means for every 1,000 feet you descend, you only get 9,000 forward. So you lose... I think we got that backwards. So you lose 900 feet for every 100 you go forward? That's even more wrong. So yeah, 1 to 9 means that we can go 2 miles per 1,000 feet. But we're only a couple hundred, we're only like 1,000 feet. That's 7760, so we're 1,300 feet above the ground here. That's a little more tricky when you have to land somewhere, so we just kind of have to hope that we're A, gonna make this one, B, that we can even see that, and see that we don't lose an engine. So directly out of the Air Force Academy, we can either return or we can look for this private air park. The only reason it lists these things is so that in an emergency you do have an option, because if we lost an engine and none of these privates were here, that's private as well, so you'd have nowhere to land. You either go all the way up to Centennial, which is a long ways, or you go back to the Air Force Academy, which is also a long ways if you're up here near Larkspur. So people put these on there so that you can use them. They're private. So then, with our altitude considerations, we're going to go 9,000. We're basically going to follow this up. Then we are going to descend probably to about 7.5, just so we're staying underneath the class Bravo. That'll keep us down here. We're going to head directly for the VOR. So if we lose an engine somewhere in essentially this range, right on the Class B shelf, we can go over here to Centennial if we can make it. The ring is pretty small. And then if we lose it up here, we can go to Rocky Mountain Metro. If we lose it over here, we're golden. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess Denver counts. There's 9 airports just right here. There's 10, 11, 12. That's a little far out. But essentially, for this entire leg, we can glide to here, we can glide to here, we can glide to here, 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 here. Right here, we might be in a little bit of a pickle because it's kind of equidistant, and depending on how low we are, so 7.5, 6.4, we might be able to make this one, potentially. It's not going to be the easiest thing, and if we make it. So that might be our only spot where we're a little iffy, but if that's the only spot for like 10 seconds, we'll be fine there. Then we come in, land there. Then if we lose the engine at any point in here, there are plenty of private airports right there. If we lose it on the way out, we can go here. Realistically, something's not going to happen at Cruise, but there are airports over here. And the only real place that we don't have a lot of options is when we really go out east, so we don't want to go too far, but we do want to make sure we stay out of the Class B. So we might go over here and start kind of circling it using GPS, but then if we lose GPS, we can kind of head out a little bit further just so that we're guaranteed clear of the Class B, and we can start following VORs around. We'll just have to make sure we're under 10.2 or 10,000 or above 12,000, which the service ceiling's 12, so that's not happening. But essentially, if we lose it somewhere over here, this is probably our option. If we lose it kind of around here, there are some options, but they're pretty slim picking. And then if we lose it on the way back, we do have a couple options. There is a private one there, there is Lyman out here, but realistically we can't make Lyman from here. So it's not much of an option. It is an option if we start having a rough running engine or something like that, but this private airport might be a better option. If we get past the private, there are tons of places around Colorado Springs. Everybody has their own ranch. So there are plenty of options out here. I've never actually seen the Calhan runway, but I've seen the shiny building, so from the shiny building I can probably find that pretty easily. And then we always have Meadow Lake, and if we have the time and we need the extra runway, we have Colorado Springs. And if we can make it back, we can make it to Colorado Springs, or to the Air Force Academy. So we're kind of in a lucky airspace here. There's really only a few minutes worth of time that it's hard to find an alternate. But if we're continuously aware of our alternates, either using GPS or just looking out the window and looking for an airport, which they're pretty hard to see, then we can essentially always have something so that if at any point in the flight we lose an engine, we should be safe. So that covers our alternates. I guess real quick, we can also cover our radios. As soon as we're coming out of the Air Force Academy, we're going to call Springs Approach, request flight following. They're probably going to almost immediately hand us over to Denver Center, and they might hand us over to Denver Approach. Once we kind of get over here, we might stay on center, because if we're not actually talking to Approach, they kind of like to keep it a little lighter on the Approach guys, because these have a whole lot of jet traffic up there. But they'll hand us off to probably center. We'll probably change frequencies 2 or 3 times because we're going to be pretty low, so we're going to have to change antennas. There's probably one here, there's probably one here, there's probably a couple others interspaced a little bit, so they just piggyback on everybody else's, or they put up random antennas. But once we get up here, they're going to switch us over to Broomfield approach or Rocky Mountain Metro approach. We're going to have to talk to them. Once we get maybe 5 miles, they're going to give us a call tower. We're going to call tower, come in land. Once we take off, they're going to probably hand us back over to approach, and then over to center, or just directly over to center. And then once we get up here, I believe this is a controlled... No, it is not controlled. More info. They have a CTAF, so essentially I just have to announce what I'm doing and where I am, so there's not going to be anybody to talk to. So at some point I'm going to have to request frequency change. They're going to have me request, or they're going to basically give me a frequency to come back to once I'm done doing my stop and go there. And then, yeah, we're going to swap over to CTAF, probably 5 to 10 miles out. Probably monitor the frequency probably monitor center or something, just make sure that we're clear of jet traffic coming into Denver. Land there, take off, swap back over to center, have them, we'll probably come over to approach over here just so that we're talking to them. Center is going to probably follow us once we kind of clear the Class B. Probably change frequencies a few times. They'll switch us over to Springs approach. We'll probably actually come in up here a little further north, that way we don't have to be talking to approach, but because I am, they will most likely just clear me in places up here because they like it when you talk, because they have so much jet traffic that honestly, if they have no idea where you are or what you're doing, I've had a couple 737s that are zipping by 1,000 feet above me that I didn't see until they were pretty close. So those guys watching over you is completely invaluable. It's just a lot more sets of eyes that are extremely valuable. But then once we get back over here, we'll switch over to the Air Force Academy frequency. And then once we land, I believe it's a Saturday, but it's the afternoon, so they will probably be closed. So we're just going to treat this like a CTAF. It might be towered when we leave. So then once we leave, we can either, once we get far enough out, we can just call over to approach. Oh boy, so that's the initial flight planning for it. The night before I tend to look at a weather brief, see what's the weather doing, what's going to be tomorrow, do I need to bring a heavy jacket, a light jacket, is it going to be super warm and I should bring shorts. On top of that, the morning of, I will actually go in and look at where the cloud layers are, look at if there's anything expected at any of the airports that I'm going to, any of the areas, because if I'm planning on going out here but there's a giant storm front over here, then I'm probably going to go the other way. And if there's a giant storm front over here and I don't know it until I get there, I'm going to have to turn around, go all the way back, and retrace my little diamond. Because, well, quite frankly, weather. You have to stay clear of weather. It's amazing how small the limits are once you're actually up there, but you have to stay clear of weather. If there's a giant sock of weather over there, I'm not even going to play with it. We're going the other direction. And if the weather is coming straight into it, then I might come up here for a little bit, I might go over there for a little bit, I might do something else until the weather clears and then fly down later. So I have done the night training, so I can fly at night down to Colorado Springs. And I can't land at the Air Force Academy, but I can land at Colorado Springs at night. The Air Force Academy just doesn't have lighting and the other necessary stuff to actually land at night, so you can't do that. But that is essentially the preliminary flight plan of fly directly on a heading to that guy, then intercept another VOR, then intercept another VOR, and then midway through correlate with another one and fly another VOR until I kind of get home. So this is essentially going to be VOR hopping. I'm going to use GPS to make sure that I'm in or out of airspace, etc. But if the GPS fails, anything goes wrong, those VORs are my primary backup. Then we also have road markings, so I can fly IFR in quotes, also known as I follow roads. There's not a whole lot of major highways out here, so I can literally just follow I-25 all the way up, and I think it literally goes all the way up here to Broomfield. Yeah, it kind of does this little fork, and then you're right off the airport. And then it kind of goes up here, and it takes you right to Greeley. So that is definitely an option. And then if I really need to, I can always come straight back down the highway and follow roads. But yeah, if you guys like seeing how I flight plan and some of the places that I'm going to and what I'm doing there, let me know. We can always do more of these videos. They're kind of fun, and honestly I have to plan them anyways, so it's kind of convenient to make a video. But if you guys find these interesting, hopefully that you find them valuable, definitely let me know in the comments, and we will see you guys in the next episode.